There is a war most people are running that nobody talks about. Not the conflicts with other people, not the external struggles with circumstances, with systems, with the difficulty of building a life that works. Those are real, but they are not the war that costs the most. The most expensive war is the one happening inside, the relentless, low-grade, continuous campaign against yourself, against the parts that feel too much or too little, against the anger that arrives uninvited, against the fear that won't stay rational, against the versions of yourself that don't meet the standard. Too weak, too reactive, too damaged, too inconsistent, too far from the person you've decided you're supposed to be. This war is so normalized it doesn't even register as a war. It registers as self-awareness, as high standards, as the reasonable, responsible work of being a person who is trying to improve. But there is a difference, a critical, consequential difference between honest self-examination and chronic self-opposition. And most people have been in the second one for so long, they have completely lost the ability to tell them apart. The transformation that is available to you is not on the other side of winning this war. It is on the other side of ending it. Part 1. What the war is actually doing. The internal war operates on a premise so deeply embedded, it rarely gets examined, that the parts of you that need to change will change faster and more completely if you oppose them hard enough. That shame will motivate more effectively than compassion. That relentless self-criticism will produce better results than honest self-acceptance. That the way to transform what you don't like about yourself is to make it feel sufficiently bad about existing. This premise is not just unhelpful, it is structurally, mechanically wrong. The nervous system does not distinguish between an external threat and an internal one. When you turn opposition against yourself, when you generate the emotional energy of attack directed at your own patterns, your own history, your own perceived failures, the nervous system responds the same way it responds to any threat. It activates, it defends, it contracts around whatever is being attacked in order to protect it. The part of you that you are fighting does not dissolve under the pressure of opposition. It consolidates. It becomes more defended, more rigid, more deeply embedded in the system. Because the system has registered it as something under threat, and threatened things get protected. This is why the self-improvement cycle so often loops without arriving anywhere. The more aggressively you fight the pattern, the more entrenched it becomes. The more shame you direct at the behavior, the more the behavior gets wired to the shame response, until the behavior and the shame are running as a single unit, each one triggering the other, neither one resolving. The war is not the path to transformation. The war is the obstacle to it. Part 2. What stopping the war actually means. Here is where the most common misunderstanding arrives. Stopping the war against yourself does not mean approving of everything you do. It does not mean abandoning discernment, lowering standards, or pretending that patterns which cause harm are acceptable. It does not mean the end of growth or the beginning of complacency. It means withdrawing the energy of opposition from the process of change. There is a quality of attention that can look at a pattern honestly, clearly, without flinching, and see it for exactly what it is, without adding the layer of combat that makes it harder to move. That sees the fear without declaring war on the fear. That sees the reactive behavior without generating shame about the reactive behavior. That sees the limitation without constructing an identity around being someone with that limitation. This quality of attention is not passive. It is extraordinarily active. It requires more presence, more honesty, and more genuine courage than the war does. Because the war, for all its exhaustion, is also a way of not fully seeing. The noise of self-opposition provides constant cover for the deeper examination that actual change requires. When the opposition stops, the seeing becomes clear. And what is clearly seen, without the distortion of shame, without the static of self-attack, can actually begin to move. Part 3. Why self-opposition feels like responsibility. The war persists partly because it has been so thoroughly confused with virtue. In most cultural environments, harsh self-criticism reads as seriousness. Self-acceptance reads as excuse-making. The person who beats themselves up after a failure is seen as conscientious. The person who meets failure with compassion is seen as insufficiently invested in doing better. This confusion is not accidental. It is taught, directly and indirectly from early childhood onward, by environments that use shame as a primary tool of behavioral correction. If the adults who shaped you responded to your failures primarily with disappointment, withdrawal, or punishment, you learned that self-punishment was the appropriate and responsible response to your own shortcomings. You internalized the critic, you made it your own, and you have been running it on yourself ever since, not because it works, but because it feels like what a serious person does. The cost of this confusion is enormous, because the internal critic, however well-intentioned, however thoroughly it has been confused with conscience, is not producing the transformation it promises. It is producing a person who is chronically exhausted from fighting themselves, chronically unable to sustain change because change requires safety, and the war provides none, and chronically cut off from the self-knowledge that genuine transformation requires. You cannot see clearly through a lens of self-attack. The judgment distorts the seeing, and distorted seeing produces distorted action, regardless of how sincerely motivated it is. Part 4. What becomes possible when the war ends? When the internal opposition genuinely ceases, not as a performed attitude but as an actual withdrawal of the energy of combat, something unexpected happens. The parts that were being fought relax, not immediately. The defended patterns have been under attack for long enough that they don't trust the ceasefire instantly. But gradually, as the opposition fails to materialize, the contraction begins to release. The defended material becomes accessible. The frozen patterns begin to thaw. And in that thawing, something becomes visible that the noise of the war was perpetually drowning out. The original wound underneath the pattern. The need that the behavior was trying, however clumsily, to meet. The fear that the reaction was attempting to protect against. This is where transformation actually occurs. Not in the suppression of the pattern, not in the replacement of one behavior with another through sheer force of will, but in the genuine understanding, felt in the body, not just known in the mind, of what the pattern was for, what it was trying to protect, what it actually needs. And what it needs, almost without exception, is not more opposition. It needs to be seen, acknowledged, met with the quality of presence that it never received in the original moment that made it necessary. That meeting, that honest, compassionate, clear-eyed encounter with the part that has been fought for years, is the moment transformation begins. Not the decision to change, not the commitment to do better. The moment the war ends and genuine contact becomes possible. The version of you that you have been fighting is not the enemy of the person you are becoming. It is the raw material. Every defended pattern, every reactive behavior, every version of yourself that has fallen short of the standard. None of it is evidence of fundamental brokenness. All of it is the accumulated intelligence of a system that was doing its best to survive under conditions that required adaptation. That system doesn't need to be defeated. It needs to be understood. And understanding, real understanding, the kind that lands in the body rather than sitting on the surface of the mind, only becomes possible when the opposition stops creating enough noise to make understanding impossible. You have been trying to change yourself through force for long enough to know whether it works. It doesn't. Not at the level that matters. Not in the places that count. What works is the thing that feels most counterintuitive from inside the war. The laying down of arms, the turning toward rather than against, the willingness to meet yourself with the same quality of presence you would offer someone you genuinely loved who was struggling with the same thing. That is not weakness. That is the only move that has ever produced anything real. The war has cost you enough. What becomes possible when it ends is everything the war was pretending to fight for. And it was available the moment you stopped fighting. If this named the exhaustion underneath your self-improvement, share it. Someone in your life is fighting themselves so hard they have no energy left for anything else. This might be the thing that finally gives them permission to stop. See you in the next one.